That Professor Schmidt looks strangely familiar. Here's a look at the Hasbro Indiana Jones Adventure Series, The Build an Artifact, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Dr. Jurgen Voller. The Man in the Hat is back again. Kids and collectors alike can imagine the heart-stopping action adventure of Indiana Jones with the figures from the Indiana Jones Adventure series. With exquisite features and decoration, this series unearths the quality and realism that Indiana Jones devotees love. While the Doctor plans a date with Destiny, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. Dr. Jurgen Voller actually is about 7 inches in height, or the figure is going to be about 15 centimeters tall. If we were to take a tally, we'd have now 4 Dial of Destiny figures from Hasbro. So here's what Voller looks like along with the older Indiana Jones. Here's what the figure as well looks like with the recently looked at Ronaldo, and freeing up space, unfortunately, here's as well what Voller looks like with Helena Shaw. I suppose first what we'll look at is the Build an Artifact piece. This is actually the backdrop piece that comes attached on top of the table. Speaking of the table, I just happen to have the table all fully assembled here. The table did take a lot of snapping and convincing, but I did finally get the legs attached on either side. Now, you'll take the back piece here, which unfortunately is hollow here on the back, but that's not really the part that you're going to be seeing it anyways. You'll take this, and it's supposed to slot on the back of this. Now, being that I already took the liberty of snapping the legs in place, I felt I was pretty confident that I didn't need to have everything weight by the waist side until eventually I got this piece. So this just slides onto the back, snaps in place, and now we have the completed table. Of course, the only thing then we need to do is get all the other figures, and we'll just kind of put all the things that go on top of the table. I will say, though, one thing I don't really like about the table, I'd have to go back and watch the movie again, as well. It does look like there's a lot of paint happening here on the table. There's not really as much happening here on the back, and it seems to be a completely different brown. It's pretty close almost to the legs, but the legs have a wash on top of it, so sort of the back in a way looks unfinished. I'm not sure if I really love that a lot. But we're going to move that table to the side for right now, and look at the rest of the accessories that come included with Voller. Now, Voller comes included with only just a pair of glasses and only just a pack bag. The reason why I say only is if you look at this one hand right over here, the one that I'm pointing at right now with my own hand, you'll see it looks as if he should have really come included with a gun. If we pick up the figure, for example, and get a closer look at all the thing I just finished saying, inspecting it closely, it is in fact a gun-holding hand. And yet the figure sadly doesn't come included with it. What he does come included with instead is his travel pack, or his briefcase that he carries around with him. You can just drape this around his head, bring his arm up, and you just basically have the bag running down the side of him. I guess in a way you could have really the strap attached inside his hand, so it looks like his hand actually does serve a purpose, but it looks like he's almost wanting to hold you up with an invisible gun. It looks a little silly. Now, one thing also that the figure comes included with is a tiny little pair of glasses. The glasses are framed here in brown, and the actual lenses there are using translucent clear plastic. It's just a case of actually fit this around his ears, and that's basically what the Dear Doctor looks like with the glasses in place. I think it looks okay. The glasses are always one thing that if they aren't already molded to the figure's face, they sometimes just look like they're levitating. I mean, you can kind of buy into the idea that they're supposed to be sitting on top of his ears. I don't think they sit as well as maybe that they should. One thing, though, a little bit bummed by the fact that he doesn't actually have a removable hat. Now, this usually comes with the territory of Indiana Jones figures, but recently, though, looking at Ronaldo had a removable hat. Could they not have done something very similar here when it came to Jurgen Voller? I mean, really, I know we see him with the hat in the movie, but we also see him a lot of times without the hat either. So really, I wish that this could have just been simply something that would have just gone over top of his head. I know, again, this involves that the hat would have had to be larger and maybe a little bit more unrealistically sized, but I think at least it would have given you the opportunity to see a sculpted hairpiece underneath instead of always having to have the figure with the hat on his head. Now, if we were to say just take the glasses off right now, I'm going to put it at least in a place where I hopefully won't lose it. We'll also take as well the briefcase bag off of him, and we'll just put that also to the side. I know we didn't really spend a lot of time looking at the bag. The bag, for what it is nicely detailed. It's a brown bag. Of course, you got the little closure there on the front in gold, some additional gold there on the sides that hold the strap. It's a nice looking bag, but I also wish that the figure could have come included with the gun. I had to really go back and look at the bag, and one of the problems I really also have with the idea that Hasbro puts all of their things inside of paper bags. when I went back and I first took out, if we saw the beginning of the video, I took out sort of the back frame that goes on top of the table. Carefully, if you remove it, if you pull it too quickly, I mean, he had little small glasses sitting inside the bag, and maybe not as small, but he also had himself the bag. Either one of these things could have easily landed on the floor. I know they wanted to save materials and make more environmentally friendly packaging, but I think that if anything, they probably should have packed the accessories specific to the figures, and I'm not even just talking about Jurgen alone, all across the board. I think smaller accessories for figures should come included with their own bags. And then the things that are for the artifacts should in fact come in their own bags. So there's never a chance that you may be pulling something out quickly, dropping some of the accessories on the floor, and think that you're missing something that comes along with the figure. That being said, picking the figure up once again, getting a closer look at the head sculpt, I think if anything it does bear a likeness to Mads Mikkelsen, who of course plays the Dear Doctor in the movie. He also in a way, while he does look a lot like him, I feel in a way he also looks like an old Christopher Reeve, maybe specifically from Smallville and the few cameos that he made appearances in. I mean, he looks a lot like him. He looks a lot like Mads, but in a way, like looking at him from certain sides, he looks a little bit like an older Christopher Reeve as well. Still, I get a bit bummed by the fact that the fedora isn't removable. I mean, again, I feel like this is something that we easily could have solved by now as a fixable means of just removing the hat. I mean, like Ronaldo has it. I know Ronaldo has a bigger sailor's hat. Could they not have done something similar here with the head sculpt here when it comes to Jurgen Voller? Now, it comes for the rest of the outfit, he is wearing a shirt and tie. The thing about it, though, is that his jacket makes up a lot of the volume of the figure. And it's not really until you peel away the curtains that you realize he's a very lean fellow underneath that. Comes with a tie. The tie is a separate piece. It's molded in sort of a greenish brown, while the jacket is kind of more in a dark chocolate brown. These sleeves are slightly shinier just by the nature of the fact that this is a separate piece of plastic. This is, again, just molded plastic. So it doesn't 100% jive, that you can kind of see, like it's a little bit more shinier of a finish for the arms and more of a matte finish here for the actual jacket. It carries over that same trend when we also look at the legs as well. I mean, he has just the regular articulation that we'll look at more in a moment. Very brightly brown shoes, and of course he does have pegals in the undersides of his feet. I don't know if I'm necessarily as bummed by the idea that we actually got ourselves Jurgen Voller in this. I mean, he is the bad guy after all in Dial of Destiny. He makes, I feel, a lot more sense than the Ronaldo we looked at before. Still, though, I kind of wish that this figure could have had a removable hat. Of course, looking at the figure's accessories, we've already looked at those. Now looking at the figure's articulation. Now, when it comes to Jurgen Voller, his head is on a ball joint, so of course, like with the other figures we've already had a look at, it does rotate all the way around. Head looks up this far, and the head looks down that low, and you can rock it back and forth as well. Now, the arms do come out easily at 90 degrees. There doesn't seem to be anything that's standing in the way of those. You can take as well those arms and rotate them all the way around on both sides. Figure has a single hinge in the elbow. Yes, he does. The arms do also swivel. Yes, they do. And the hands also rotate also all the way around. Now with the jacket doesn't do that bad of an idea. I mean, it doesn't get in the way necessarily, but the thing you have to really be worried about is the placement of the tie. Because the tie, if you actually look at it, what they've done, I'm just going to move the jacket out of the way. We've already looked at the fact the figure does have a ball joint in the head, but he also has a separate piece here where you can see like the neck collar piece. So there's a second, really, technically there's a secondary ball joint right there. And if you miss it, when you start to move the other things about the figure around, before you know it, you start swaying the tie to the side and you realize, hey, wait, where's that tie going? Until you realize actually the neck collar piece is on a separate ball joint. So really, in actual fact, he has one right there and he has one right down there. I really honestly don't think he necessarily needed to have a double ball joint. I mean, for the fact that the figure has a collared tie, I think it would be more than enough, just simply that the figure had a ball joint here, and they could have just left this off completely. I mean, with the additional plastic used for that ball joint, they could have spent then the materials and given him a gun to hold in his hand. Anyways, though, the figure has an upper torso ball joint. The figure does split, in fact, in the thighs. You can see there's the ball joints working behind the scenes. Legs go forward, legs go back. 3/4 of the way up the thigh, there's the swivel cut, so that rotates all the way around. Figure has a single hinge in the knee that allows at least the lower leg to rotate, and of course, like the other figures, an ankle pivot up and down and rock back and forth as well. Good looking figure. I don't think he was necessarily needed as part of a Last Crusade wave, but I know I've been up on my pedestal about that this whole time. Maybe I'll give it a bit of a rest. Maybe put the figure right in the middle here. And of course, the other Dial of Destiny figures. Let's bring back in Indiana Jones. Get him to stand here. Bring back in Ronaldo. I always feel like I want to free up the space here. And of course, much to the chagrin of others. Here's also what they look like with the Helena Shaw figure. Yeah, again, Dial of Destiny doesn't really necessarily belong in a wave where you're starting to build something for, the Last Crusade. Dial of Destiny really should have been its own wave, really could have easily been an artifact wave, or at the very least could have been sold separately. But we all know what Hasbro wanted to do. They wanted to make sure they shoehorned in the current movie. So whether you had the choices or not, if you wanted to complete the table, that's one thing. Of course, that would involve you having to then pick up the figures from the Dial of Destiny. If you had little to no interest in building the table, well, then there's that. Then you probably could have easily just handpicked the figures that you wanted to get instead, specifically from The Last Crusade. For what he is, he's not a bad-looking figure. I'm more accepting, I feel, of when it comes to Dr. Jurgen Voller. I'm more accepting of him than I was for Ronaldo. Ronaldo, I just don't... As good of a head sculpt as it may have been, and if you haven't seen my review of that, definitely check that out. Ronaldo, I don't think belonged at all to be a plastic figure. Sorry, Antonio Banderas, if you happen to be watching this video. I think I make more of a logical argument as to why Voller had to be part of this wave. Not only does it look like Mads Mikkelsen, but I think also as well, if you're going to be getting an older Indiana Jones, you need to have the bad guy that goes along with it. And while we haven't really gotten bad guys yet from The Last Crusade, really, when you look at this wave, who do we have really as bad guys? Nobody. He really didn't need necessarily to be part of this wave, but hey, of course, that all goes behind the scenes when it comes to toy building. You got to ensure that, of course, collectors are going to be buying these figures, whether they do want the figures or not. While there may have been some things I didn't really like about Dial of Destiny, I will say at least Mads Mikkelsen plays a pretty good-looking bad guy, and he really is generally bad in all the things that he's usually in. Hannibal, for example, some people really like the Silence of the Lambs series spin-off with, of course, Mads Mikkelsen's playing Hannibal Lecter, but I never really got the chance to watch much of that series. I'm more actually familiar with Mads Mikkelsen from the James Bond. Was it Casino Royale? I think it was Casino Royale that Mads Mikkelsen was actually in. But he actually played a pretty good bad guy in Dial of Destiny. I think he justifies at least to have a plastic figure released of him. He's certainly more justified, I feel, than Ronaldo that we got before. We're still bashing on Ronaldo. Okay, we're not going to bash much longer on Ronaldo. Now, the figure does have 2 accessories, so at least there's that. But still, though, why would you sculpt the figure's hands in such a way, at least one hand, in such a way that it looks like he's supposed to be holding a gun? To not have the figure packed with a gun seems either like a last-minute decision on Hasbro's part that they chose, well, you know what, we already have enough things for really Jurgen. We don't need to now include a gun as well. Or maybe they just decided that guns wasn't probably the best idea when it comes to releasing him. If he's going to be Dr. Jurgen Voller, maybe he should have just released with glasses and the bag instead. I might just find myself a gun, because if not for that, it looks a little strange that he's got just one random finger. It happens to be the pointer finger or the pew-pew gun if you're using an imaginary gun. It just happens to be that one finger that's sticking out from the rest of the fingers that are on his hand. But what do you guys think of Dr. Jurgen Voller? Let me know down below in the comment section. Do you think he was a pretty good bad guy in Dial of Destiny? Maybe a better question to be asking you guys, the viewing audience, is who's your favorite bad guy of all the Indiana Jones films? Now, we have 5 films now to work with. Of course, the original Raiders of the Lost Ark or Temple of Doom, depending on which order you'd like to put that in. Last Crusade. Of course, no one can also... Temple of the Crystal Skull, which actually I think is still the worst Indiana Jones movie. I think it's a little bit worse than Dial of Destiny. You guys can fight me if you want. But who's your favorite bad guy from the Indiana Jones 5 films? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also as well, hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit with like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly would like to stick on board as we stay back on track to something a little bit more Last Crusade. We are, of course, still looking at Henry Jones Sr., and we're also going to be looking at the Knights. And between those 2 figures, we'll be completing the table, even though really technically the table's already finished. Definitely stick around, guys, for more videos. Of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.